There were many academic institutions in India that focus on very good training primarily, and globally if you look at academic institution, even institution like MIT is known for the long term for the research impact that they've made, even though short term everybody is known for the primarily undergraduate program, not even the graduate program. So it was very clear that most of the Indian institutions, particularly the IITs and IISc, probably was more research focused, but IIT was undergraduate education was the focus. So I think the founding objective was to create a mix of IISc and IIT, where research is at the focus, but training undergraduate is also at the focus. They both are at equal footing. And this required the institution to be organized slightly differently from other institutions. One of the major differences that you would see at IIIT Hyderabad is we have no departments. Ordinarily, institutions, universities and institutions like IITs are organized as Department of Computer Science, Mechanical Engineering, Civil Engineering, Sciences and so on. Whereas in IIIT we decided early we will be organized as research centers. These are problem area focused. So we have Language Technology Research Center, which was the first one. This focused on processing Indian languages, human languages, not computer languages. How to process human languages, how to understand them through the computer, how to translate, with a special focus on the Indian languages. There's a lot of work happening in English or German and Chinese all over the world. The very few, or if not none, were working on the Indian language, how to understand them, how to translate, how to search in them. So that was the earliest, the first research center, the LTRC. Then we had computer vision and, we call CVIT, Computer Vision and Information Technology. Similarly, Robotic Research Center, Data Engineering Research Center. So the institute was envisaged to be organized as research centers where every faculty member, students, engineers or other domain experts relevant to that field will be together in one room or one area, and the teaching program will cut across the research centers. This is completely opposite of how it's done in traditional universities, where the teaching program like computer science, BTech or ECE or civil engineering is owned by a department. And if interdisciplinary research has to happen, it has to cut across these departmental boundaries. And it was said by Professor Sangal that the departmental walls tend to be very tall to scale over to do interdisciplinary research. That's why it was reversed. So we have Sanskrit scholars or linguistic experts and computer scientists sitting together in one center, the Language Technology Center. Similarly, computer scientists or civil engineers and spatial informatics people sit in the spatial informatics research group and so on. So this was the one very visible difference in being research oriented. The curriculum also was very, very different from other institutions. We wanted our undergraduate students to be part of our research journey. In India, the best, the brightest students and the students in the largest numbers are found in the undergraduate program. And how do we use them for our research? And how do we enrich them with more than just ordinary exposure to the subject, research exposure to the subject, problem solving exposure to the subject? Which means we wanted undergraduate students are here for 4 years. We wanted them to work a significant part of the time, or at least we enable them to work a significant part of their time on a research problem with some research faculty. So we said first 2 years will be building the background so that the last 2 years, the second half of their undergraduate program, they could be working on some problem. Curriculum, starting from the very first semester, was very different. We got into the subject areas early. We focused on courses that trained them in building things. These to be called IT workshop courses. We don't have traditional workshop courses because it focused on IT. But these are workshop courses where they use high-level tools and build things even in the first semester, second semester. This gives them a thrill of building things. Not just that, when they get to do subjects later, they understand the science behind the tool. So our goal was, in the first 2 years, the undergraduate students should be exposed to, in at least briefly, to all areas of research that goes on in the institute, and they can join starting with third year one of the faculty members or research centers and start working on a project which they will do for the 2 years. We call it the honors program. Students can optionally register for it. They can spend additional time, additional course credits they take to do projects on some area. This can be one long project or multiple small projects. This suddenly gave the research center a lot of manpower. We'll have 10 undergraduate students joining our centers each year, and they are not ready to do research to the same level of a PhD student, but they are eager. They're very good at especially building systems, so they are good at coding. So we could undertake projects. We'd had a lot of coding. So these are the couple of things, and so the curriculum was what we call, what Professor Sangal says, inverted pyramid. The subject areas come early. The breadth courses are not sacrificed at all. We have, in fact, science courses and humanities courses. Our percentage of science and humanities credits, general credits, is probably higher than any institution in the country. But they come little later in the curriculum when they are also able to connect their training in IT with those subjects. So that's a secondary benefit of inverting the curriculum. So this way, research was at the focus from the very beginning in teaching. Even internally, whenever we think of any policy, the first thing asked or first thing we look at is how does it impact our research? If it impacts the research seriously, we would find a way to reduce that impact. We may do that, we may set it up that way, but we want to reduce the impact, the bad impact on research. How do you promote research through this? This will be in curriculum design or the number of credits required, or even things like having longer summer breaks so that students can do internships either in IIIT or elsewhere other research groups. So every decision keeps the research, its impact on the research ecosystem in mind. So this is the way research has to be, we have to be breathing research all the time. And importantly, in the curriculum, every course will have some research orientation. It's not just teaching the subject, it's not just teaching the things in the textbook. In fact, I say the research orientation really means students should go back at the end of the course with the feeling that last page of the textbook is not the last word in the subject. There is so much that lies beyond what is taught in a first course or a second course in a subject to learn. And so they get enthused to explore if they are interested in that area, and at least they know that they have to explore more to solve real problems in the world. Difficult part in an institution like IIIT, because we are not a government institution. We have no sponsors except for the land and buildings given by the then Andhra Pradesh, the state government. We had to fetch every paisa ourselves on our own means, whether to spend on research or spend on teaching. This is why you don't see many private institutions engaging in top-end research in the country, especially in India. There are brilliant private institutions that do very good teaching, undergraduate education, and their financial model is the undergraduate tuition pays for the faculty salaries and all other expenses. The research, on the other hand, is very expensive proposition. You need investment in terms of buildings and space, but also specialized equipment. And that cannot be raised from undergraduate tuition. The traditional way they do in advanced nations is there's a strong research funding ecosystem through their governmental sources and private industries, and faculty write proposals, they get funding, and they use their PhD students or other students in working on the proposals and delivering the results, and those project funds pay for the student, pay for the equipment, etc. We are very strong on doing that within the Indian ecosystem, but Indian ecosystem is not as mature, at least the funding system is not as mature as some of those countries. Most of the government institutions like IISc or IITs, they get their research funding automatically from the governments because they have a sponsor, which is the central government or the state government. Since we don't have them, we don't have people to give the money, we don't have even people to give scholarships to the PhD student, which we have to raise ourselves. So this has been very challenging. In the early years, we also got some largest, there was Satyam Computers, that company established, actually funded the Language Technology Research Center for first few years for sake of some equipment, as well as, more importantly, the student support. One happy thing about the area of IT is it's not very infrastructure, that is computing resources intensive. It's not like mechanical engineering or civil engineering. You need very expensive physical equipment, or you have in sciences where you need some microscopes which are run into crores. Fortunately, the IT areas, you require computers, the low-end ones and some of the high-end ones. They'll be the far less expensive than a mechanical engineering department or a chemistry department to be set up. So that way our needs, at least in the initial years when we are focusing on language technologies or computer vision, data science, the needs for equipment was moderate. We could raise it from some savings from the institutional running, but also from some of the projects. The PhD students and other student support, we again started getting projects after 3 or 4 or 5 years of the institute started, and they were largely supported from them. We were also very aggressive in looking for projects, and we worked with industry very strongly, and industry always tells us that we are different from other institutions, because the governmental institution in those days were very reluctant to talk to industry, in one thing. Second, even when they work with the industry, they had very rigid IP policies. Industry cares for IP very much, and most of the IITs or the IISc, until very recently, they wanted to own the IP in its entirety. So those don't work for the industry. We devise very flexible policies by which if the industry, we recommend or we encourage the IP to be open, available to everybody. That's our preferred model. But if the industry wants either first movers advantage or even exclusive right to the IP, there were models. They probably will cost more in terms of the base cost of the conducting the research. But we had very creative and innovative policies by which industry also felt comfortable working with us. So industry funds also flowed, not in very large numbers, but in good numbers, so that our faculty were working with Microsoft, with Infosys, with Intel, apart from the Satyam, which was like an endowment given to set up this language technology lab. So it still remains a challenge for the institute to raise resources for our research. Of late, when we are strong in the artificial intelligence areas, in AI, one of the requirements today is heavy computing power in terms of compute clusters that include expensive GPUs and CPUs. So that investment we have been making from most of institute resources. We also had very recently, the TCS Foundation engaged with us to enhance our research through the Kohli Center on Intelligent Systems that was established in 2015. They gave money. Their money was used first to complete a building that was already there, that houses the Kohli Research Block today, but also to some of the running expenses, including the use of supercomputing or the high-performance computing resources that we purchase for it, and so on. So that's the highest amount of compute resources that we needed. So we are getting from multiple sources, including of late, with our reputation, we started a very strong executive education program which generates surplus, which can be used for investing back in the research for manpower or for equipment and so on. So this remains a challenge, and I wish the funding ecosystem, the governmental funding ecosystem in the country becomes more agile to needs of institutions like this, rather than institutions are fully supported. Recently, DST had a national mission on integrated cyber physical systems. They were setting up 25 hubs of research areas. So with our reputation, our proposal was also accepted among the first 15 or so technology innovation hubs that they were setting up under this national mission. We were one of them. Our technology innovation hub is on data-driven technologies. or broadly using data for a lot of societal and other applications. And that they are funding over 100 crores over 5 years. So that's direct results of our capability or reputation. So even from the very beginning, we did reasonably well in attracting research funds for the sources which are against competitive proposal. Multiple institutions submit proposal, they have an evaluation process, we go and make presentations, and based on the strengths, they allocate funds to this. So we started getting funds in and leading some of the national missions on particularly related to language translation. So the language translation mission, there were these consortium mode projects where multiple institutions come together and carry out this mission. So we were the leaders in some of the NLP tasks, natural language processing tasks, and OCR and so on. So these are against competitive proposals. We did quite well. So one of the things very early, administratively we are a private institution. Even though we are started by the state government, there is no ongoing funding through the budget. So in the lingo of the central government, we are a private institution. When we applied for projects to say DST or mostly the MITI, the Ministry of Information Technology, there were challenges. They said, how can we fund private institution for it? And then there was a dialogue. Our people, the state government, AP state government talked to them, and they finally agreed, okay, this institution is a different kind of institution. It's above board. We can fund them. And that started very early. And even when we went to get funds from, say, DRDO to carry out some of the projects, they were saying, you're a private institution, we can give private institution funds, but you need to give some bank guarantee so that you won't run away or things like that. We again resisted that. We worked on them. We got the state government to vouch on our behalf. It took a little while, but they agreed to treat us on par with the IITs or other government institutions. So these are the special challenges we face in integrating with the research ecosystem. So I would like the government to be more agile to the needs of these such institutions, because they also have a lot of capabilities. Yeah, so research, academic research they result in publications and occasionally a patent, but traditionally they stay, in the cupboards of the institution. In the beginning itself, we wanted our research to reach the society through either a direct tech transfer to technology companies, or through startups, or through projects we do together on the field with other entities. That is very clear. It is also far more imperative to us because we don't get guaranteed funding from government or other sources to run our research. So we know we have to raise funds through multiple mechanisms. So if you have technologies transferred to companies and they are more ready to fund our research or get surplus funds. So even the very first batch of undergraduates, there's couple of students started a company. Not that it did well, startups have their own challenges, but that was encouraged from the very beginning. And we established a incubator, the CIE, Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, in 2008, just when we were 10 years old. And it turns out that is one of the very early academic incubators in the country. Even the institutions that are 50 years old by then did not have this mechanism. And at the very beginning, we decided that our incubator, we will remain a smallish institution, maybe 1,000, 2,000 students. So if our incubator and that all that activities is focused only on our students, alumni, faculty, that will remain small. That will not have the critical size. So we opened it up to the entire Hyderabad ecosystem. Whoever wanted to come and sit here, benefit from having other companies around or the institute students and faculty nearby, they are all welcome to take seats there. They will learn from each other. They will learn from the various events and talks that we will conduct as an incubator, etc. So very soon, in about 5 years after starting, somebody else told us with about 100 plus companies, we were the largest academic incubator in the country. We didn't even know that. And I think we maintained that position maybe among the top 2-3 in size among the academic incubator. And technology transfer is very difficult thing to do in an academic institution because professors are interested in doing the next bit of research rather than working on something that has reached a certain level of maturity, spending more energy on it and taking it to the society. We also need these professors to train the next generation of PhD students who will work on the next thing. And many times the students working on this project are also have other idea. They may want to work in a company, they may want to go for higher studies in IIIT or elsewhere. So they also are not interested in running with this technology into a startup or some other avenue. So we realized, we started talking about it, creating a development wing within the institute where it will take the technologies as is from the labs, take minimal help from the people who created the technology because they don't have time to spare, have a development team that will work on these technologies, but also keep the market reality in mind. What will be readily transferable to a company? What will be transferable to a startup? What can be given to some strategic sector, etc. So this team was set up only in 2017 or so. We call it the product labs. This is really a development team within the institute who interface with the researchers who created the technology and the outside world. And fortunately we got a industry veteran who was heading the Honeywell's innovation group, etc. Who was ready to come and lead that effort. So now it's a very rich effort, and I'm told 7 or 8 technologies are in very advanced stage. Some 1 or 2 have been transferred to startups, etc. So the point, especially in Indian environment, we need to work on translating this technology from academic output to what is sellable or usable in the society, and that requires investment. The institute invested some money in maintaining the team in the beginning. The hope is very soon this technology transfer will generate enough revenue that this group can fund something in the institute rather than being a cost center. One early strategy that worked was getting undergraduates into research because they are the brightest people. How do you get them interested? So we created a BTech honors program. All students going through the minimal curriculum will get the BTech if they join a group or a faculty member and work the last 2 years. They join at the end of 2 years, then they work the 3rd and 4th years on an additional project. This will be equivalent to 1 course. So if the basic curriculum, they do 5 courses at a time, they will do 5 courses plus 1 project. And this project can be one project that develops one long product or some research output, or it can be multiple small ones. Often these BTech students work with the PhD and masters, other researchers, and build part of the system. So this, in the early years, we also had students who were, if you look at IIIT, it had no name when we started in 98. We were not even a recognized university. So the students who came, at least the first 3-4 batches, were true pioneers. They were taking a risk. And they really liked the idea that they could work on some things. They could develop some research products or research ideas they can work on and develop right here. So they were very eager in joining. In fact, we used to have at least a third or more of the undergraduate students of every BTech class joining this honors program, even though it's an optional program. And they were working with all of us, and they were ready to build things. And many of them started publishing in papers, which is unheard of, to have undergraduate students being part of really credible publications. All that happened, and this momentum. In the undergraduate world, what works is what the seniors do. So once this momentum gets set up, the next batch also want to join to be part of this effort. They get their advice from the seniors that you go in this lab or that lab or do this. And so that became a very prominent or very attractive thing for the undergraduate students. And we started a MS by Research program where it's a 2-year research-based master's program. There's a 1 year of nominal coursework, and the last year and part of the first year itself is spent on doing research. And this is differentiates from MTech program, which also we have, because the MS students have to write a thesis, and a thesis means they have to write it, publish it, defend it, etc. We have MTech students, MTech program, they have coursework, they have project work. They don't have to publish the project work. They can, but they are not required to. So this is a very research focus, and we started getting many good application. Unfortunately, in India, at least at that point, early 2000s, the number of PhDs produced across the country in computer science by the top credible institutions was like 25 to 30. That's really abominable in a large nation like ours, where 5 lakh or 6 lakh students used to come for undergraduate studies. Of that, 1 or 2 lakhs were aspiring to be computer science students, and they had only 20 or 30 PhD students graduating every year. So that was a very poor situation. Maybe the students thought PhD was too long a commitment to research, and probably there were fewer options outside of academy after a PhD at that point. That reluctance was due to all these reasons. Whereas when we opened this 2-year master's program, we got many more students interested, because a 2-year exposure to research gave them a big fillip in their career. They have started joining the top product groups in the country, and we got very good numbers of students doing that. So this is another example where we tuned our strategy to emphasize a little bit more than other institutions on this 2-year research-based masters, which will produce the output, which produces our reputation, and then more PhD students started coming later. We also started a dual degree program, BTech MS program, 5-year program, where the students get an undergraduate degree in computer science or ECE or areas, and the masters will be a thesis-based masters. They have to work with one of these faculty members and write a thesis. So this program had students who were really bright students whom we prepare ourselves for the undergraduate level, and they're continuing on. The honors kind of project they do, the momentum they maintain, and continuing on to the 5th year to do the thesis work. So this is a very successful program. Graduates of this program are found all over the world in top research groups, as faculty members in places like Berkeley and Oxford, and in top groups across the country. In fact, the undergraduate research focus that IIIT had from the very beginning resulted in a lot of undergraduates who started their research journey in language technology or robotics or computer vision or VLSI right at this institute. They continued that journey, some of them, very few of them here itself, most of them in the best universities in the world and best companies thereafter, etc. So this creates what I call our research diaspora, a strong research diaspora that is seen across the world, and they are doing very well. The difference is they are still connected with us. A large portion of them are connected with us because they think their research journey did start at IIIT, and they are still acknowledge that. If you look at their publication record, the initial 1 or 2 papers are co-authored with people from here, and this is a great reputation to have. When I go to a computer vision conference, or similarly my colleagues go to a language technology conference, etc., we typically see 30 or 40 or 50 individuals who started or part of our diaspora, and that's a great strength to have. This has been acknowledged by the global research community. They say you did a good job of creating a lot of computer vision researchers or computer vision linguistic researchers across the world. So this is another, so success begets more success. This is how things work here. And recently, our MS by Research program has been doing very well, but we have been putting a lot of focus on enhancing the PhD program. We do have 150 PhD students today, about 100 plus in full-time mode, and this is very credible. It's comparable with the average numbers for Indian institution. But we want to do much better than that, because our research focus is much more intense than our peer institution. In 2002, when our first undergraduate batch graduated, Professor Raj Reddy, our governing council chairperson, challenged us on the stage in his speech. He said, IIIT should aim to graduate 100 PhD students per year in 10 years from now. That's a huge challenge. I said in those times, country used to produce 30 PhDs in this area. Now, one institution doing 100 PhDs per year is a tall task. I must acknowledge we fell short of that task, but it's still a wonderful task to fall short of. We produce maybe 25, 30 PhD students per year in the last few years, which is short of our dreams, even 20 years after that dream was given to us. But our MS by Research program has been very successful. We have been producing 100 plus MS by Research students in the last few years, and 100 plus thesis coming out of the institute for the last 5 years or 6 years. So we have met the goal in some other way, in a slightly modified goal, but we would like to come back to that goal very soon. Today we have 150 PhD students. Maybe we want to scale to 500 PhD students. That's when 100 will graduate. Typically they take 4 to 5 years. So we have been funding them through projects, and there are many competitive fellowships across the world, across the country. Typically the Google fellowship, there is TCS fellowships, there are Vishwesvaraya fellowships in the government, and our students have been doing extremely well in all that. We are among the top awardees from IIIT. Primary research impact for any institution will be through publication, or initial research impact will be through publication. Publication, their quality and the forums in which they come are what MIT is judged by, and IITs are judged by, IISc is judged by. So our primary goal has been to do well in that space, and we have done well there over the many years through hard work of our faculty, the PhD student, master students, and undergraduates. There are some data-driven or data-based rankings in the world of institution. These rankings, they're called csranking.org or AIrankings.org. These are just portals that collect information from the very top conferences and journals in every area. Only the very top counts. And they say how many papers came out from each institution with institutional affiliation, and they have a way of averaging them and normalizing them, etc., and ranking the institution. So we have been ranked among the top 5 institutions in computer science within the country, and the top institution in AI areas within the country. But we stand maybe among the 250 or 300 ranks in all of computer science across the world, and in near the 100 numbers in AI area across the world. And that's where our focus should be. We should be reaching there. And this is a very narrow look at ranking or the capabilities of the institution, but focused only on top level publication. So that's the foundation on which reputation of any research institution will stand. We also want our research to go to the society through projects that we do through governmental agencies. So we have very early on research in IT and agriculture. One of my colleagues, Professor Krishna Reddy, is very passionate. He comes from farming background. He wanted to use information technology to improve the productivity of the farms, to improve the life of farmers across the world or the country. So he ran many projects funded by Media Labs Asia, funded by MIT, etc. in Warangal and around where his village is from. And this was to collect data about what's happening at the field through, what's happening to the crop. Are they affected by pests? Is there any, water is shortage, or, is it getting irrigated better? Through trained people who may be just 10th class pass, who go to the village, visit every farm, and collect data on a sheet, or take photographs of the crop, and these data will come to Hyderabad, where experts, agriculture experts sit on our campus. They look at the photograph, they look at the data, and they have the domain knowledge. They will say, okay, you do this intervention, you don't do this for the next 2 weeks, etc. So this is like, remote doctors, except that, the doctors can travel to the villages, patients can travel to the cities for specialization. Crops can't travel, so we have to take the doctors there, and the doctors or the experts are few in the country. They cannot travel easily. So how do we extend? Through technology, we extend the doctors' reach to the villages. This was the initial idea. This went through several phases, several modifications, and it's been one of the pioneering efforts in applying modern technologies into IT. And there are many such things happening in the country today. Similarly, the language technology, we were focusing on Indian languages. Producing the first search engine in Indian language was done here. The first translation system, which translated from, say, Hindi to Telugu or English to Hindi, etc., were built here. These were prototypes, research prototypes. They were doing well in comparison to the world's best translators in those languages in those times. Of course, times have changed today. The entire internet companies like Google's and Microsoft's have invested a lot in translation. They also have very modern AI-based translation systems. Our translation systems also compare very well with them, but they are not deployed in as large numbers as Google's translator is available through the web. So that's the next phase. Today there is a project going on, a national mission on language translation mission they call. The project is called Bhashini. The objective is to translate from any Indian language to any other Indian language, speech to speech. This means I talk on my mobile phone in my mother tongue, which is Malayalam, and you can listen to it in your mother tongue, which happens to be Bengali, or Telugu, or Kashmiri, or Gujarati. Today, the components to do that is very much available. The technological component available, you need to engineer them, we need to make sure they work at our operating point, that India's operating point, the kind of smartphones our villagers will have, the kind of accents they have. All these are possible. The proof of concepts are there, but our goal is to make it available to the villagers or others. This is a national mission, about 20 institutions involved. We are leaders in some of the areas. Other institutions are leading other areas. And this is I'm very excited about this project because this takes the fruits of technology right to the society. So this has been our focus in the recent times. I also say, the traditional model in academia is academic institutions are primarily teaching institutions. They conduct classes for their BTech, MTech, PhD, all the students. The academics who teach them are well trained in research. So why don't you use their spare time to do research? So academics or teaching being the primary goal, research being done on the side. This has been the traditional model of academic research across the world. If you do that, you can scale the number of researchers or professors only in proportion to the number of students. We want to kind of think of ourselves as, invert the model and say, we are a primarily research institution, but we have faculty members who are well trained in these subject areas. They can teach. We'll also conduct programs for bachelor's program, master's program, PhD program to capitalize on their expertise. And teaching is not a secondary activity. Those students will work with us and provide our manpower for research, or they'll go out in the world and produce research elsewhere. So we want to kind of reverse this, try to be a research institution that also does teaching. This is a very challenging model, especially given our funding model, financial model, which we have no guaranteed funding from anywhere. So we are talking to companies, to government, to other entities to see how to, fund research at that level.